shoulders to herself. Perfect. Your next storyteller coming to the stage, superhuman. Love her very much, so will you. Put your hands together for Miss Rebecca Waits.
Thank you. Keep it going for Joanne, everybody. A little bit of feedback. Ever so slightly forward. How you guys doing? Y'all ready to exercise some demons? That's what I'm doing. So I was at a bus stop the other day, and there's this kind of yuppie-ish gentleman. This is messy. There's this yuppie-ish gentleman, very visibly judging the young junkie girl, or assumably junkie girl, who hangs out outside of the Fred Meyer across the street from my house. And he was kind of like looking at her and then looking at me and looking at her and looking at me. And this guy and I get on the bus, and he tries to. I was getting ready for a comedy show that night. He's trying to keep my head in my notebook, and he keeps trying to talk to me. And he's like, it's sad, seeing a young woman like that, being addicted. I'm like, yep, sure, yes, okay. Please don't talk to me. And he's like, but I guess to be fair, all of us are addicted to something. I'm like, well, I guess that's true. He's like, so what are you addicted? What's your thing? What's your vice? What are you addicted to? And without missing a beat, what came out of my mouth was, I think I'm addicted to sadness. And that's when the man stopped talking to me. And I got my wish. I'm gonna grab my drink. So, this is a story about kind of when that started, because I realized in that moment that came out of my mouth completely involuntarily and without thinking about it. So this is a story about kind of when what I refer to as my decade of trauma started when I was about 12 years old. So it's January 1999, and what I remember most distinctly was that it was January. I couldn't tell you what the weather was that day or what was on the news. All I know is that I was with my mother when the letter came. And that I think we were alone together in our dining room. And I was 12 years old, just gotten back from another day of 6th grade. She was rifling through the usual mail, pile of catalogs and bills. And I remember watching her calm fingers cut through the bright white envelope and unfold several sheets of paper. And I was probably petting one of her many dogs when she broke an otherwise comfortable silence. Huh, she said. What, Mom? I asked. There was a long pause while she stared straight ahead into our giant curio cabinet full of snow globes and Star Trek memorabilia and family photos. She didn't appear to be looking at anything in particular. Well, she said, calm and disaffected, almost nonplussed. It looks like I have breast cancer. I don't remember knowing what that meant for her or for our family or for the future. I didn't understand and wouldn't for years. I don't remember crying or running away or jumping into her arms. I probably hugged her, but with no knowledge of the reality or the severity of the situation. And I don't know what happened next. I don't know how my father reacted, or if they huddled or cried or sat my sister and I down to explain everything in reassuring terms. But I remember those words she spoke and how unsad they were. They were spoken with this hint of annoyance, as if she had just lost a sweepstakes or had been slightly overcharged for something at a thrift store. Now, to give you a little bit of background about my parents, my father is a large black man who looks alarmingly like Neil deGrasse Tyson. And he is a freelance scuba diver and a lifelong R&B soul singer and bassist. My mother is a small, meek Jewish theater nerd who I have never seen dance, and who's so incredibly socially awkward that she brings a book to the movies. My parents are an interracial couple in Cincinnati, fucking Ohio, who have been married for 28 years. What's interesting about my family is that my parents were raised down the street from each other in this neighborhood called North Avondale that was intentionally integrated after the riots and kind of like desegregation at the tail end of the 60s. And my grandfather on my dad's side was a renowned civil rights activist and one of the first black DJs in the country. And my mother's father was a white Jewish civil rights lawyer. So those two grandfathers were actually working together. My parents didn't meet each other until they were 37. That's when they met and they had me. That's my parents. That's my family. So my entire family is incredibly morbid. And I grew up with this sense of humor that would continue to confound and disarm and worry everyone not in our precise and unrelenting world of dark and absurd reasoning. Teachers and school officials, rabbis, doctors, friends, parents of friends. Beyond scores of examples I could present to display our slightly flawed philosophical approach to life, I offer this. I didn't realize until my late teens that even though my mother sat down every day and read the Cincinnati Enquirer, the only things she would actually read were the obituaries and the comics. I didn't realize until even late, it took me even longer to realize that was not normal or what normal parents did. So given a family-wide obsession with death, the strangest thing of all is that I never for a moment thought that my mother would die of cancer. Maybe things hadn't been explained properly, or I was just too young, or I remained optimistic as a defense mechanism, but whatever the case, death was not a fathomable outcome in my mind. There was chemotherapy, and there was radiation, and then there was more chemotherapy. There were biopsies and surgeries. There was doctor after doctor and hospital after hospital, constant blood labs, white cells, red cells, iron, hemoglobin, all of these new words and concepts, all of these new things to keep track of. There were supplements and pills, juice and bills. She was stronger and sweeter than I could possibly imagine myself being during all 2 years of it. And most everything else is a blur. My dad was always an okay dad, but when Mom got sick, he had to step up to the plate and become a father. In fact, since Mom was in bed for a couple of years, he had to become both father and mother. So, of course, it was hard and confusing and scary. And of course I wept in my room until my face stung because my father only knew how to cook one meal that was becoming incredibly tiresome. And because my period came on with the sucker punch of exhausting hormones that summer, and on top of everything, I was socially awkward and chubby, I ate too much salami, I was in borderline obsessive love with at least one of my best friends, and I was insistent that cutting my own bangs was a totally sweet idea. I have maintained several of those qualities into the present. But in hindsight, those things were actually the least of it. The miseries are many and small and insignificant. But the moments of joy and of salvageable images of hope and resilience, those are the fragments that are huge and swollen, that are lodged in my gray matter forever. All I can really remember is laughing with my mom. And laughing to her sudden hypersensitivity to touch and smell, which is something that comes with chemotherapy. She would wake up in the middle of the night if one of the dogs shit in the living room. And she would be the first one to go down to attend to it. And laughing as we watched cartoons together in bed day after day, and laughing as we made fake squeaking noises against her newly bald head like Mr. Burns, pretending to be old-timey shoe shiners. After her single mastectomy, for which she had no reconstructive or cosmetic surgery, we would toss the beige-colored prosthetic breast across the room at each other like an ineffective frisbee, or wear it on our heads like a hat. Neither of those jokes have ever gotten old, and we still do both of those things. And finally, in the year after her last treatments, we would watch and giggle in awe of science itself, as mosquitoes died instantly on her smooth forearms from sucking up her still poisonous blood, while the humid and muggy Ohio summer sun bore down on us in the front yard. 2 years into my mother's remission from stage 2 breast cancer, my father became ill and was diagnosed with hepatitis C, something which had apparently sat dormant and quiet in his system for a couple of decades, probably picked up in his wilder days. Again, the doctors told us that he had a marginal chance of making it through. And again, I watched grimly as one bedridden parent drowned in the agony of a full year of chemical cocktails designed to expunge your organs of an unseen disease, while the other parent became both father and mother to the rest of us. We in my family are open people and vulnerable to boot. And we're this herd of multicolored black sheep. Our soft hearts coated in a baffling exterior of nonchalance when it comes to trauma. If the Marxes, my mother's family, had a crest, it would feature a small, shaking dachshund surrounded in each corner by the Greek comedy tragedy masks, a bookshelf, an SSRI prescription bottle, and a Nikon camera for capturing all the bittersweet moments. So my parents are also amateur hoarders. Hoarders light, I guess. And we have a lot of stuff. They're working on it, but every time I return home, I fruitlessly clean out another room of deep, bottomless piles of books and toys and memories. And ever since I was born, my mother has kept obsessive lists of all the gifts we ever give or receive as a family. There are notebooks upon notebooks of these lists, which she then transcribes into typed files on her old Mac computer. So my mom keeps these lists of everything that goes into or comes out of our family. And for the longest time, I would just get really frustrated. Like we celebrate Christmas in my family too. And during Christmas, at the end of unwrapping our gifts, my mom makes us come, bring the piles of gifts, sit down in front of her, and list off each thing that we've gotten and received so she can write it down. And a couple of years ago, I got really frustrated. I was like, Mom, why do you do this? Why do you have to do this? Well, why do you do this every year? Why can't you just let it be? And she's like, I don't know, Rebecca. I have to do this. Like, emotionally, mentally, I have to do this. And I realized that everyone in my family, so I come from two distinct lines. Both of my families are hoarders. And I realized that we're not just physical hoarders, we're emotional hoarders too. And the more I've been thinking about it, I realized that I don't think I'm as addicted to sadness anymore as I am addicted to nostalgia and memories. And I think that's okay. Thank you, guys.
Rebecca Waits, ladies and gentlemen. Hear that.